The alleged backyard, one-time knockout, straight-edge, hardcore, Hall of Famer hero, Dave Shane. Welcome back to Fight TV. It's good to be back on the airwaves after a 1-week absence. How the hell are you guys doing in this wild and crazy world that we're living in?
I'm doing great. Now, first off, can we just acknowledge Dave Hero's shirt? Let's go ahead and just get that out of the way. Let's just go. Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Wow, that looks good on you, man. That might be the best you've ever looked.
You know what? I love the color green because it is the color of money, but this is now, the second time I've had to wear the Hurricane shirt because I'm 0 for 2 at Be the Booker with him since we've been, keeping.
I mean, 0 for 3, but who's counting?
This is a super show, folks, and what Shane and Dave are talking about is we're going to be doing 2 Be the Bookers for the Fyter Fest event and also the recently announced Great American Bash event from NXT coming up over the course of the next 2 weeks. Before we do that, though, we're going to talk about AEW and NXT from last night. A lot to get to, a lot to talk about. We're not going to waste any more time. Let's get right down to it. And I want to get your thoughts, gentlemen, on last night's NXT broadcast, where we did see the announcement of the Great American Bash returning. But I'm going to let you guys just go toe-to-toe here, talking about the goods and the bads of NXT last night on the USA Network. And how about we start with the Hurricane?
I liked NXT last night. There was some good stuff. Again, as I said last week, that show is so dark, so dimly lit. I think that affects the energy for me sometimes, and that could just be personal. That could just be a personal thing. I love the fact that it started with my man Cameron Grimes, started up the show, a good showing for him with Damian Priest. Again, this was a match that they could have used a count-out victory. They didn't need a finish here. If Priest would have lost by count-out when he took Cameron Grimes' finish on the outside, that would have been just as fine. Cameron gets the heat with the win. He gets to brag how he beat the guy, but did he really beat him? Because it was just a count-out. They could have used that. That being said, I do like the fact that they're getting this finish over on a bigger man than Damian Priest. I like that. I thought Karrion Kross had a good performance with Bronson Reed, but I thought Bronson Reed had a good performance as well there. I like to see him, Bronson Reed going forward, and maybe he could be a Vader type personality,
really?
A Vader type performer.
Is that what time it is?
Yeah, it's Bronson Reed time. So, but Karrion Kross looked great. I loved what they did with Dexter Lumis and Roderick Strong. He's feeling the effects of having to deal with a psychopath. Man, that's good storytelling. So I like that. Rhea Ripley continues to be awesome. There was very little I disliked about NXT last night.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. It seems like every match had a story to it, which we can't always say happens on the other channel. But Bronson Reed is going to be a star. And I think besides Keith Lee, he might be, he should be the next big man that could actually make a splash, no pun intended, if he wants to go the King Kong Bundy 5-count way. But I liked it. I loved the triple threat match. I wasn't too sure how that was going to look because you have 2 guys combined aren't as big as Big Keith Lee.
There it is.
But, Finn Balor, I thought did great business. I thought he elevated both guys, and for him to take the pinfall loss to Keith Lee, it elevated Keith Lee quite a bit because Finn Balor, even though he hasn't done much lately, he's still one of the most talked about stars in NXT and, of course, the first Universal Heavyweight Champion.
And, of course, endorsed by Damian Nelson.
Of course. Yes, he is. But what was interesting, Rob Stone, formerly known as Robbie E., is going to have a match at the Great American Bash. When you think of the Great American Bash, you think of Dusty Rhodes, Ric Flair, Sting, and now Robert Stone, which I think is fantastic.
He's a great wrestler with a great wrestling mind, actually.
No. He is fantastic. But, I mean, just think about whoever would have thought we would see Robbie E. on the Great American Bash. Absolutely not me.
But no, you're saying on the Dusty Great American Bash. This is a shell of that.
Yeah, he's doing a good job in a Jimmy Hart role as a manager there. He's more of a Jimmy than a Bobby.
He is.
more of
He
a
is.
Jimmy than a that's the kind of. I will say this: there was one thing from a creative standpoint I would have did last night differently with Escobar Santos. He's got his two henchmen, but they look like a mini version of the AOP. I would just change their appearance up a little bit, because especially when I think, and just as going off movies, when you think of Latin kind of mafia mobster type guys, there's still a little bit of color there. Maybe if you go down to Miami and you see how the guys that, if you've been to Miami clubs and these are the main guys over there, they're not all in black. There's color there. And it might be something they could do with that. I don't know. But when I saw them, and I immediately thought of the AOP and that they're smaller, and I don't want them to get that, here I am spreading something that I don't want to spread. I guess I should have thought about that before I said it. Just looking at it, I would like them to maybe add some color to their look. But that was a great match, too, that I left out mentioning was Escobar and Jake Atlas.
Everything had a real good flow to it last night. The commentary, I think, at times is my disconnect. Sometimes it feels like all three of them are just screaming into the microphone, calling something, like they're overexcited, that they're overselling what's actually going on. They don't let things digest at times for me. But the triple threat main event match I thought was great, and I'm looking forward to seeing Keith Lee hook it up with Adam Cole in 2 weeks.
Agreed.
So it's interesting. NXT announces, as we talked about, and as you guys mentioned, too, a good night of action, matches that seemingly both of you really liked the show last night. But now they also, all of a sudden, out of the blue, announced the Great American Bash is coming back for not just next week's edition of NXT, but also the following week's edition of NXT. And I'm not going to get into the copying game here, but obviously AEW is doing Fyter Fest on July 1 and July 8th. Now you've got a holiday week going on. It all makes sense to do some extra promotional stuff or whatever. But how did it strike you guys when you heard that WWE and NXT were reintroducing the Great American Bash on very short notice and right up against the 2-week Fyter Fest from AEW, Shane?
I'm not surprised. The only thing I'm surprised is how quickly they did it, that there's so little turnaround. But I would expect them to have done this 3 weeks ago. I'm not surprised that they did it. It's just, I guess the idea popped in their head at the last minute or something. It's not like they had to fight for the rights to get the Great American Bash name or anything. So that's the only thing, but I'm not surprised.
Well, was the Great American Bash one of the names Cody tried to take back, tried to trademark? I don't know.
Possibly. The Great American Bash back in the day was phenomenal. We don't have, and even when WWE was doing it when I was there as a performer, it changed to something different. It used to be, I remember Flair was defending the world title like 25 times in a month, which was just insane.
And he worked Ricky Morton, he worked Road Warrior Hawk, he worked Nikita Koloff. It was everybody who was anybody.
Everybody got a shot. And man, like as a fan, as a believer, as a true believer, we were all talking about who's it going to be, because it might not be one of the top contenders. I was pulling for Ricky Morton, and I'm a Flair guy. This is Flair country. He's my man. I'd put him on the $100 bill. But man, I was pulling for some Ricky Morton.
Here we go again. Now you want to change the $100 bill. I see.
Change him. I don't care. I don't never look at that shit. I look at the number. Does that shit say 110? I don't care whose picture's on there. Damien, am I wrong?
You're not wrong.
I don't give a shit. I look at that number. And so but I had either Ricky Morton or Road Warrior Hawk. I was like, those are my two guys that can win it, and they didn't. All right, but Dusty came back on it.
A lot of people don't realize though what you're talking about, Shane, and Dave, you remember too. The Great American Bash was the Great American Bash is. It was like a 2-week-long event, I believe, or that culminated at always at the Greensboro Coliseum, right? For the finals of the event, but it was the summer of bashes.
Yeah, it was the Great American Bash tour.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, when they announced Ric Flair against Road Warrior Hawk, I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. Because you never knew the Road Warriors to wrestle as a singles. And now when you see someone as badass as Hawk going to get a shot at Ric Flair, you thought Ric Flair was not going to win.
Right.
So, and then when WWE took over Great American Bash, like he had the lineage of, all the Ric Flair matches, they put Torrie Wilson having a barbecue on the poster.
So here's the thing. Here's the thing. Okay, and that sold some tickets, I'm sure. But here's the thing. I associate the WWE incarnation of the Great American Bash with JBL, actually. Because I think he was the one that reintroduced it, and it fit perfectly for everything that he was, right?
I was there, and I don't remember why. But I get what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing with you, but I can't remember why he did. Why did he introduce it?
I don't remember why he did it, but it was it was when he had the cabinet and he was, being president, or he was the longest reigning SmackDown champion, all that other stuff, if I'm remembering correctly. And
hold up. I was the longest reigning SmackDown champion.
Whoa, wait a minute. Hold up. Wait a minute. What?
I was the longest reigning champion of any kind in SmackDown history. I beg your pardon, sir.
Are you challenging JBL?
Yeah, he knows.
Whoa. Damian, pump the brakes. JBL was the longest reigning heavyweight champion, but not longest reigning champion of all the titles.
I stand corrected.
There we go.
Stop with your attack on me. I stand corrected.
I mean, Shane, how dare you? How dare you?
Shane, you are clearly the longest reigning champion in SmackDown history.
Next week, I want a Hurricane shirt on Damian Nelson.
Can you send me one? I'm in transition right now.
Dave knows the guy.
I'm in transition right now. It's going to be difficult to find it. Do you like the fact that WWE is for a second time now resurrecting the Great American Bash brand and name, David?
They have to, yes, and they have to do it because if you look at AEW is calling their show Fyter Fest. Now it has a big match type feel. Oh my, what's a Fyter Fest? I want to check that out. And then all of a sudden, if it's just NXT regular, well, now they're like second rate. But you throw Great American Bash on there, now it has another big event type feel to it. And wrestling fans that are wrestling fans, that have been wrestling fans, know that the Great American Bash actually has value to it. It means something.
So NXT has War Games and the Bash. Can we please, I don't know why it hasn't happened. Maybe, Shane, you can give us some insight. Probably the most iconic, well, probably one of the two more iconic WCW of its heyday pay-per-views was Halloween Havoc.
Yeah.
I have been waiting for somebody to bring that back. It's such a natural event to do and such an easy event to do. They just need to bring that one back and do that over Halloween.
100% agree with Halloween. I don't know this year Halloween fell on a weekend. I mean, I don't know what day Halloween falls in. Anybody catch that reference? You motherfuckers.
It's on a Saturday this year.
No ghetto. I'm the only one that knows the Ghetto Boys. I know Damien don't know nothing about no Ghetto Boys.
Not at all. Not a
thing. But anyway, yeah, I would love to see Halloween Havoc come back.
Obviously,
on a tangent, Barry Windham as Sting is my favorite Halloween Havoc moment.
Hey, you know, I'm forgetting, too, they brought back Starrcade, too, but that's not NXT. That's actually the way they're doing Starrcade, or have done Starrcade for the last few years, has been tremendous. It's been down in your area of the country, Shane, and it's been a house show, basically, that they've glorified on the WWE Network, which some might interpret and some have interpreted as a slam against WCW, but it was a regional event before it was a national event anyways. Yep.
Well, they did closed circuit pay-per-view. Or closed circuit viewing. I know it shut Greensboro down when they first did it in '83, I believe.
Yep. And you know, a lot of people don't realize that Greensboro Coliseum, that's one of the largest arenas in the country with, I think, a wrestling seating capacity of somewhere near 25,000. Only the United Center in Chicago really comes close to that.
I didn't know that.
I'm a nerd.
You don't say.
Yeah.
Oh, you two agree on something now. So the reason Dave is wearing that green shirt is because he doesn't know how to book. Shane does, and Shane continues to book fantasy-wise what actually ends up happening on the pay-per-view events. That's happened now for the Backlash event, and it also happened for, what was the other event? NXT in your house. So every time Dave loses,
there was three of them, though. What was the first one?
Extreme Rules, In Your House, and then the AEW pay-per-view, whatever that was.
Yes.
Are we going to run through AEW real quick before we get to the media booker?
How about
NXT?
How about we book the Great American Bash week 1 and then go to AEW? So, Great American Bash 2-week event. It starts next Wednesday on the USA Network. Let's talk about some of the matches that have been announced so far. And what happens here during Be the Booker, if you don't remember, is These two very smart gentlemen in the world of professional wrestling, one from a booker perspective, that of Dave, one from a performer perspective, that of Hurricane, will indicate who they would book and why, the important part, the why, to win, or how they would book these matches to happen at the event. So with that being said, Great American Bash, you talked about it earlier, Shane. It's going to be Roderick Strong, or Dave rather, I think you may have mentioned it. And you did, Shane, mention Dexter Lumis. Well, those two will go head-to-head again in the first ever NXT strap match. So we keep it fair. We keep it balanced. It goes from one to the other. Dave, since you're the loser repeatedly here, why don't we give you first choice in determining how you would book Lumis and Strong?
For me, it's a no-brainer. Dexter Lumis has had Roddy Strong's number. Roddy Strong doesn't even look like Roddy Strong lately. He looks completely different. He looks like he's confused. He looks like he's disheveled, the whole thing. And you got to believe that somebody as insane, as plotting, as odd as Dexter Lumis, this match is made just for him. But then you got to wonder, well, can Roddy Strong overcome his demons? Maybe not yet, but Dexter Lumis, if you're going to do something with him, it has to start by beating Roddy Strong at the Great American Bash.
All right, Dave would book Dexter Lumis to get the win for the reasons he said. Shane Hurricane Helms, how about you?
I think Dave makes excellent points there. I think with the Dexter Lumis character, him losing this match won't hurt him. But I think, like Dave said, if now might be the time. Let's go ahead and start running with this guy and see what we can get out of him. I love the story of Roderick Strong struggling mentally with somebody like that. It kind of really fits. I mean, you got to imagine if you're a wrestler and you're dealing with a lunatic, that's odd. So I love that. It's right there in your face. We understand the story. It's good storytelling so far. If Roddy somehow escapes with a win, and we're going to carry on with this story, I could see that happening. But I think the way to go with this is Dexter Lumis.
If you look at Roddy Strong, he's always put together. And last night he did not. His hair looked a mess. He wasn't, clean shaven or whatever else it was, but he just seemed completely off. So he is committed to making sure Dexter Lumis gets over.
Let me ask you this, Shane. Clearly, you know Roddy, and Dave, you and I have met Roddy a couple times, and going back to his ROH days, he's long been a talent that has just been fascinating to me because I'll ask the question of, is he not one of the toughest men in professional wrestling? He is strong style and doesn't get all the credit I think he deserves for that.
Oh, he's definitely very tough. Actually, I just saw a clip of him the other day from I think it was something with him and Samoa Joe, and he was pudgy. He was big. He was bloated. And, man, you look at the incredible amount of work he put in to transform his body. It's insane, the hours. And I know the diet he's on. He trains super hard. So, yeah, I guarantee you, I can promise you, he's very, very tough. And does he get the credit he deserves? No. But he's been fighting that his entire career because Roddy has been good for a long, long time.
Hasn't slowed down. Is it, you talk about his physique, Shane, is it his size that makes that credit hard to give?
Maybe, it could be a charisma thing. It could be just not really having, when you're just a wrestler, when your gimmick is a wrestler, sometimes it takes you longer to get over.
Yeah.
If I didn't have, that's why I became the Hurricane. If I was just going to be Gregory Helms coming in WWE, it was going to be an uphill battle, and it was an uphill battle anyway because of my size at that time. But, he never really had a hook. If your hook is just wrestler, guess what? You're in a wrestling industry, there's a million of those. Yep. So he never really had a hook. That's one of the things that kind of held him back. And, his promo skills evolved. They're better now than they've ever been, which should be the case for everybody. He's improved in all the areas that he needed work on. And that's such a vital element because some guys have been told for years, you need to work on this, and they don't.
Yeah.
He does. He's he's checked all the boxes that he can check. He can't make himself get taller. He can't put on 80 pounds of muscle. But what he did is he looks like a phenomenal athlete, and he is.
Shane, I haven't asked you this, and I assume the answer is probably yes, but are you a Seinfeld fan?
Of course, yeah.
So he could be lifting.
He could be lifting. Yeah. He needs those shoes a little bit. Well, there's a lot of lifting going on, but I think you could be able to tell it with those little boots if you want.
Dave doesn't watch Seinfeld. That's another flaw in his life. He doesn't get it.
Dave is a communist.
Oh my!
Only communists don't watch Seinfeld, and that's the universal fact. Everybody knows that.
Hey, let me ask you guys this. And I don't want to get too deep into it, but Seinfeld reruns, do they still play after all this we're going through right now?
Yeah.
That show's pretty – it's like All in the Family bad at times.
It ain't that bad. Damn. I love the fact that people miss the fact that All in the Family was making fun of it.
Exactly.
They were making fun of racism and bigotry the whole time. People not missing that just blows my mind. It's like people that they complained about To Kill a Mockingbird. It's like, it's racist. You're like, no. It's showing you that racism is dumb. That's the whole point.
Yep. All right, before we go further.
We can go on a diatribe.
We're not going to do that. Shane, what I will give you the opportunity, though, is to.
Dave is a communist. I will say that.
But he's wearing green. I'll give you an opportunity to book the second matchup, which is going to be, as you mentioned, Dave Hero, Rhea Ripley is going to go up against Robert Stone and Aaliyah in a handicap match. Now, in that handicap match, Rhea Ripley will have to join the Robert Stone brand if she loses. What would you do, Hurricane?
This is tough. It's tough because I think I would love to see Rhea Ripley just beat the shit out of Robert Stone. That would be very entertaining, and it's more than likely what's going to happen. But at the same time, from a storytelling standpoint, if somehow she gets suckered and she gets tricked and she gets finagled, and now she's stuck with Robert Stone as her manager, that could be some entertaining television going forward that can last for weeks until she finds a way out of it. So I'm going to go, this is tough because I hate pulling for Robbie E. I love Robbie E. I love him to death. He's been doing great. Man, this one's tough because I
wouldn't have pegged this one as the tough one. This is interesting.
I know, but you got to think how going forward, where we're going forward with this.
Yeah.
If we're going forward and we need weeks of good entertaining television, Robert Stone driving Rhea Ripley absolutely bananas with his antics, that's entertaining television. That's why I'm going with Robert Stone. And I forget the partner's name. I'm going with them. They're going to slip on a banana peel. Now, they're going to get the win somehow, and that's what I'm going for.
I could see the pain in your face by making that selection.
It's tough, too, because it's so easy to see Rhea Ripley still running her push, going there, dropping Robert Stone on his head, and that's it. I can see that.
But this build has been long, though, right? Robert Stone's been in having problems for the last few weeks, so it sort of makes sense the way you're saying it because he's got to come out of that somehow, some way. Dave Hero, how would you book this match?
I absolutely agree with Shane. You have to go with Robert Stone and Aaliyah because what else is Robert Stone going to do if he can't win this match to get someone else in his stable? They've invested so much time and effort and money building the Robert Stone brand for it to go away after just Chelsea Green not working out with him, I think is a huge waste. It's going to remind me of when either Dusty Rhodes got Baby Doll or who got Missy Hyatt? Who got Missy Hyatt from John Tatum one time?
Was it Eddie?
It may have been. Well, besides that, yeah. But I can just see it done in a reverse fashion, where Rhea Ripley is going to be just miserable. And why not put her with Robbie? Because obviously they don't have her figured in to the women's title plans yet because she's not involved in anything going forward for that championship. But Robert Stone needs the victory, and having Rhea Ripley with him, I think, could be some tremendous television. And then eventually, the big payoff is going to be when she finally does get her hands on Robert Stone and get her career back.
Yeah. But to throw a caveat here, and I don't have insider information, what if they're transitioning Robbie E to an in-ring performer himself? I don't know that they are. I have no information. If they're going to do that, Rhea Ripley beats him. He's no longer going to be a manager. He gives up that. He's going to try to be a performer. He sucks at that as well. That could also be some entertaining television. So, but I'm still sticking with the Robert Brand. I think, too, they did it with Precious. Did you say Precious?
Missy, maybe it was Precious.
In a world class, they did
Yes.
it. It might have even been Sunshine. It might
could've
have been
been, yeah.
Sunshine.
We're going down memory lane here. I love it.
Yeah, I think one of the Von Erichs won Sunshine or Precious from Jimmy Garvin for like 30 days and made her do a bunch of...
Wasn't it Chris Adams? Didn't Chris Adams win it?
Chris Adams, somebody won it. And she had to do like a bunch of cowboy work on the farm. Gotcha.
Yep. Yeah, so Sunshine, Precious, Missy Hyatt, Baby Doll, they've all been lost somehow. And I fully expect something like that to happen at the Great American Bash next week.
All right, well, there's one more matchup to talk about for the Great American Bash, and this one starts with you, Dave. It is going to be a fatal four-way, and this will determine the number one contender for the NXT Women's Championship. That match will take place in week 2 of the Great American Bash, but here are the 4 competitors vying for that opportunity. Tegan Nox, Candice LeRae, Maya Yim, and Dakota Kai. Whew, 4 ways are never fun to book, but how would you book it, Dave?
Boy, I mean, I guess for me right now, you almost have to go with Dakota Kai because she's been the one that has had quite a bit of TV time but hasn't capitalized on anything yet. And, I love Mia Yim. I think she would be fantastic, but I don't think that they want to have a babyface match at the Great American Bash. But with Dakota Kai, I think that she checks all the boxes for the antagonist to have that match with the following week. But yeah, I'm going to go with Dakota Kai.
Well, that was easier than I thought. How about you, Shane?
Yeah, I'm torn between Dakota Kai and Candice. I think everything he said for Dakota Kai, he could say for Candice as well. So it's going to be, I feel like it's going to be one of those two. And just for fun and giggles here, I'll take Candice just so that we got to break up the monotony of the two. I'll go with Candice.
All right. Well, the first time you guys are breaking tonight, right?
Somebody had to be brave here.
Yeah. Well, Shane's way more braver than I am.
Well, remember last time we did Be the Booker, we established your new strategy, Dave, which is follow Shane.
But that can't be that can't be true because obviously I've lost 3 in a row. If I was following him, we'd be tied.
It's been an evolving strategy, and I'm glad to hear you say again. I'm glad to hear you say again that you have lost 3 in a row. That's the first step.
No, you know what it was? It's just that they didn't agree with the way I wanted to book things. That's all that it was.
True.
Well, that is Great American Bash Week 1. We'll cover Week 2 next week after the results of Week 1, because as you see, a couple of these matches roll right into what's going to happen on July 8th. But with that, let's move on to AEW Dynamite last night. Now, we know going into the show on TNT, they had to make some changes due to some injuries and due to some quarantine situations, actually. And, we still saw a good show. I think AEW still presenting that different look, that different feel on Wednesday nights. They did it again yesterday. But, Dave, what were your key takeaways from AEW Dynamite?
It seemed like they had a whole bunch of things going on at one time on AEW Dynamite. I mean, they had the press conference with Cody and Jake Hager. You had the new Batman and Robin team of Sonny Kiss and Joey Janela fighting crime all around the city. You had Colt Cabana teaming up with Brody Lee, which I thought was very interesting and very odd at the same time. Of course, John Moxley not there because of COVID-19 concerns. Brian Cage, I thought he looked fantastic the way he tossed that guy around. I mean, he gave him that shooting power bomb outside the ring, into the ring. It just seemed like there was so much going on. And let's not forget you had Matt Hardy involved in a match as Broken Matt. And what's cool about that is they don't know which Matt Hardy's going to show up. But it just seemed like there's just so many different things going on in AEW that unless you have a scorecard, you can't follow everything.
Really?
Yeah. And they started, and then, of course, you had FTR having a great tag team match with Kazarian and Daniels. And Kaz and Daniels are fantastic. It kind of reminded me of watching the Midnight Express against the Brainbusters, because Kaz and Daniels are so good, and then you have FTR. But I almost felt like FTR took too much from Kaz and Daniels and almost slowed them down because everyone keeps talking them up about what a great tag team they are, the best tag team, in all of wrestling. But they came real close a couple times last night to actually losing to Kaz and Daniels.
The scorecard conversation or comment is interesting, though, Dave, because they do have the wrestler rankings. That's not helping you?
Well, no, because I don't pay attention to that.
Oh,
and then, I just don't.
They make it easy for you, spell it out for you, and then you sit here and complain about it.
A scorecard is different than rankings. Because let's be honest, rankings don't mean anything. Jake Hager hasn't had, more than 2 matches, and he's number 1 contender for Cody's title. And Brian Cage has had a couple matches, but he won 1 match to become the number 1 contender to Jon Moxley's title.
So, okay. But
it means nothing.
You just answered your own question. There were special circumstances that led them to those spots.
Not for Jake Hager. He just beat Cody up and became number 1 contender.
Shane, your thoughts on AEW Dynamite this week on TNT?
I was really looking forward to it. I was not disappointed. I'm with all the stuff that goes on, every segment having a story involved in it. This reminds me of Attitude Era WWE, where everybody's getting a push.
Yes.
Everybody that's coming through that curtain is getting a push, or at least there seems a direction. The opening match, the tag, not the opening match, but the tag team match with SCU and FTR. I get what Dave's saying, but at the same time, we can't forget that SCU's former tag team champions. Mm-hmm. Or was it? Did Daniels have the tag team titles, or was it Scorpio Sky?
It was Scorpio Sky and Kaz.
Okay, but still, it's SCU. They're kind of all in. They're kind of all in the mix, and they just. Daniels isn't young, but man, can he still go? He can still go as good as anybody on that roster can. Yeah. I think the interesting thing in that match is there wasn't a real heel. There actually wasn't heels at all. You got the babyface team of SCU, and you got the tweener team of FTR. To the point where one of the FTR even came in and blew a babyface comeback. Before he did the slingshot suplex, throwing up the 4 horsemen symbol. So I thought I was pretty fascinated by that. I didn't hate it at all. It was good. I get what Dave's saying about, it kind of feels like the FTR should get some dominant wins, but, this COVID era has kind of made, has some desperate bookings at times, and it is what it is. I thought that was really good.
And it's only been 4 weeks, I think, that they've been on AEW, and we talked about it before they debuted about how they should be handled. I think their handling's been great. If they're getting those dominant, they're sort of easing into the, as you said earlier, Shane, everybody meaning something. And as we talk about the Fyter Fest card in a minute here, looking at the card alone, it's like, okay, each of these matches, each of these people in them means something.
Good. They're good, and they all have a story. Yeah,
there are no throwaway matches.
No throwaway matches. I do, too, want to say the FTR calling their finish the Goodnight Express just tickles the shit out of me. I'll tell you what was funny there, too. They did the truck thing where the Butcher and the Blade came up. I guarantee you that the Lucha Brothers missed their cue. I think they came in too early because then the promo, because you can see FTR look back, then the promo keeps going. The Lucha Brothers are just standing there. Everybody in that ring looks like an asshole there for a moment until the Blade gets, and because he's got to make the match, and here's our partner is, and they fear no evil or some shit like that, whatever. And then you get into the physicality. I guarantee you the Lucha Brothers missed the cue and went in early.
Maybe they're not having FTR beat Kaz and Daniels that easy because they don't want to fall into the old Impact Wrestling trap.
And they should.
Of bringing in a former WE team that was very mid-card when they left and then beating all their talent easily. So if that would then make sense. But part of me also wanted to see the Butcher and the Blade show up in an ice cream truck and not FTR's truck. I just think it would have looked better cosmetically.
Well, they didn't show up in their truck. They just went and hopped in and stole it, which the last I checked was Grand Theft Auto. But, hey, it is wrestling. We will commit a felony every now and then. So, but other things in the show, what I thought was a miss, I thought the Lumberjack match had a bit of a miss for me. Warlow and Luchasaurus. Luchasaurus, to me, is hit or miss, and this one didn't do it for me in terms of him as a character. Warlow and MJF, and you guys might have said this before, that to me, that's Shawn and Diesel right now.
Yep.
I've seen in the past when you got a little guy with a heater, and the heater isn't really doing anything. He's just kind of there. Or,
it makes him so much easier to hate.
Yeah.
Because you think you can beat his ass, but you can't get past the guy protecting him. It's perfect.
Yeah.
And that was a big win for Wardlow. To beat Luchasaurus, who is like one of their flag bearers of AEW. But
I think he went to the low blow. Like, it didn't warrant a low blow there. He should have been in more of a desperate situation to have to go to that low blow. Mm-hmm. And then the finish, either Luchasaurus couldn't take it or whatever reason, that finish did not look good. And then you had this big, massive pull apart. There was a couple things, like they did the cool spot with Warlow. He threw like Marco Stunt 90 feet up in the air onto a group of people. Minutes later, Marco Stunt's back up in the fight again. You're like, dude, I get it.
Yeah.
Maybe sell a little bit here. That'd be nice. I think they did a really terrible camera shot when Luchasaurus is getting ready to do the shooting star off the thing. And you just see a group of people there waiting for 30 seconds. Shoot Luchasaurus.
Drives me nuts.
Shoot Luchasaurus. Don't shoot the guys who were basically like, hey, we're waiting. And Luchasaurus is up there double dipping because you can't tell what he's going to do.
How else do you do that, Shane? Is that a camera shot issue or is that?
Yeah, camera shot.
Because you can hide that, right?
Yeah, you shoot the guy. You find out a way. I mean, whoever was the producer of that match, and we're going to shoot something here, you need to have in your mind what camera is going to be shooting him. What camera angle do I want the fans, the audience to see? And you talk to the guy in the truck, say, hey, this is going to be camera 3. This is going to be the jib. This is going to be that. Hard cam, whatever you do. That was something that I made sure of. If there's a specific camera shot, you got to let the cameraman know, and you have to let the production truck know. You can't just go, I want this shot and hope it shows up.
And that's where the polished, seasoned experience in WWE comes into play. You think about back in even the Attitude Era, as you mentioned before, even your dear close personal friend, Jeff Hardy, there would be so many shots where he'd come out of the literal blue hell into the camera range and execute a move, and it made it that much more exciting. And
I tell you what I picked up on it was in WCW, because they would be so bad. You would see, and it happened to me a couple of times, I'm climbing the top rope, I'm about to jump, and then they would shoot some other shit. And then it comes back and you see a pile of people and you're going, how did you – I was climbing up the top rope.
Right.
What more of a cue could you need?
Right.
That's the cue. I'm climbing up this bitch. I'm about to jump. Getting WWE was a lot more professional. I got to know all of those cameramen on a name basis. Like, hey, man, I'm going to be up here. So catch me. I got you. So that just bled over to my work as a producer.
Well, let's be fair, too, and I think, and I like the fact we get to dig a little deeper into some of these morsels of the business. From what I understand, the WWE production team is pretty established as the same group of people, whereas the WCW production team, for a long period of time, was the Turner Sports production team, and they weren't necessarily trained, I guess you can call it, in shooting wrestling.
Maybe that might be the case. I know in TNA sometimes we would have new camera guys that hadn't shot pro wrestling before, and it's just odd. It's
And having been on the production end, doing video work for many of your shows, Dave, commentary for wrestling, audio for wrestling, and shooting wrestling are the hardest things you can do, because you may think you know what's going to happen. You may have had a script. You may have had practice rehearsal, if you will. But you got to react live, and when you're shooting, and whenever I shot wrestling, one eye's in the viewfinder, the other eye is looking everywhere else for where I got to go next, or somebody needs to be telling me where I got to go next. It's just constant. You just got to know the business in order to do that. So it's interesting how easy it is to say that there's a miss at times, but it really takes a huge level of experience and know-how and wherewithal to do it right.
Yeah, sure.
Any other thoughts? I'm sorry, go ahead.
I do want to say, too, I thought the press conference was pretty good. I thought Arn did great.
Cody's jacket was awesome.
Cody's fantastic. He's great visually. As a promo, I thought Jericho's promo with Orange Cassidy at the end was really good. I thought Matt Hardy's match with Santana, I thought Santana showed out. I thought he looked great to see what he could do as a single competitor. I think commentary –
surprisingly good, Santana and Ortiz.
Yeah. I don't know if commentary touched up on it, but it kind of looked like Santana was winded at the end, which happens when you're used to tagging out. Believe it or not, when you're used to tagging out and now you're in a singles match for 10 plus minutes, that shit will get you.
Yeah.
It will get you.
Great explanation.
Two of my things also was Brandy. I'm surprised she didn't chase after Jake Hager's wife.
That was weird.
Because she's always right there for everything else, and she wasn't there at that moment. And to be fair, as much as I wanted to watch the Keith Lee Gargano Finn Balor match on NXT, I was going back and forth because Jericho's been so good. I wanted to see what he was doing with Orange Cassidy also.
Yeah.
So never did I ever think I'd want to go back and forth to see what Jericho was doing with Orange Cassidy. And that was really well done also.
Let's be real here. Never did you think you'd be trying to tune into anything Orange Cassidy's doing.
Well, how tough is he? He's being gig silly lately.
No kidding, right?
Those orange peels are very thin-skinned. That's what it is.
Hey, that blood orange thing isn't a gimmick anymore. It's a real deal. Yeah.
I tell you what I like too, the women's champion, Sheeta. I loved her squash match. I love that she went out there, squash, and then goes and whoops Penelope Ford's ass. I wish that she would have I wish that beatdown would have left more of Sheeta up instead of both of them up at the same time. Little too many pull aparts last night, but I love the AEW overall.
Well, from last night, AEW goes into 2 big weeks of action, much like we talked about with NXT's later announcement of the Great American Bash. Well, for the last couple of weeks, we've known that AEW was going to be presenting Fyter Fest, which, in case you don't know, is a parody of the Fyre Festival disaster that was perpetrated on people. But it is going to be taking place over 2 weeks. This is going to truly be a head-to-head situation now. We've talked about ratings.
But real quick, if they don't have Ja Rule show up, they are missing the biggest. Listen, he needs money. You seen those commercials he's doing? My dude apparently needs some cash.
Yeah.
We all do. Who am I kidding? I'll come down there if you need Shane Rule up in there. But I would lose my mind if I see Ja Rule introducing just the promo, the opening package.
Yes.
Fyter Fest needs to be Ja Rule cutting a promo. Matter of fact, I'm texting somebody as soon as I get done.
And here's what's great too about this event, and we talked about it a couple weeks ago with the Jericho Tyson thing. That match is not on this card. And they're saving it for when they can and when they can have an audience, it seems. Unfortunately, that might be longer than we thought, given what's going on now in the world. But be that as it may, let's get to the card. Let's get to Fyter Fest. Let's talk about it. Shane, you get the first pick in the first matchup that we're going to talk about, which will pit in a tag team match. Private Party, Isaiah Cassidy and Mark Queen. Great team, by the way. They've gotten better and better over the weeks. With Matt Hardy, actually, versus Santana and Ortiz.
Wow, that was actually pretty tough because I'm thinking long terms in television. If Private Party lose and Matt Hardy is there to say, hey, we can use it as a learning experience. Let's go forward. You can get a little bit out of that. But at the same time, now that they've got Matt Hardy with them for the Hardy Party, the Private Hardy Party, I guess. I don't know what the hell they call it. But now that they got them, that should give them an edge. And so I'm going to go with Private Party and Matt Hardy on this one.
Private Party and Hardy. The Private Hardy Party?
Sure.
Private Hardy Party. David Hero, who would you book to win this match?
You know what? I have to agree with Shane. If you're going to bring Matt Hardy out with Private Party, a tag team that really has not been getting a whole lot of in-ring TV time, that one there. Santana and Ortiz, LAX, they're always going to be a top tag team in AEW, but you need to elevate more tag teams in AEW because with FTR and everybody else, it's going to be a revolving door. But yeah, Private Party with Matt Hardy, the Private Matt Hardy Party.
Listen, I've been to a Private Matt Hardy party. We can't talk about that. We got to leave that in the past. Hey, if I do talk about it, Rebby's going to come flying in and kick my damn head off, and I don't need that kind of pressure in my life.
Well, you also had a private Hardy party in San Jose one year on us also.
What?
The basement,
I don't even know.
the shenanigans party in the basement.
Oh, I forgot.
Yep, that was you.
How about that? Big fave, damn.
That was one of the few times I got in trouble with the manager. All right, so next matchup, folks, at Fyter Fest Part 1 next week, Part 1 of 2. Dave, you get the first pick on this one. It's going to be Jurassic Express, Jungle Boy, and Luchasaurus. They're going to team up along with Marco Stunt to take on MJF and Wardlow.
This one, you know what? You really have to go with the Jurassic Express because they just can't keep losing every week to everybody, which is basically what's been going on. With the exception of Jungle Boy's victory in the Battle Royal, they haven't been doing a whole lot. Unless that, Jurassic Express is the second incarnation of the Job Squad, you almost you have to wonder what's really going on. I don't think Wardlow and MJF need to win because they'll always have their heat. And I could see Luchasaurus finally getting a victory over Wardlow since Wardlow's been punking him up for the past few weeks. I'll go with the Jurassic. As much as it pains me,
clearly,
I'm going to go with the Jurassic Express.
All right. Well, it is 3-on-2, I guess you could say, but how much involvement will Marco Stunt have in this matchup? Shane, how would you book it?
I go with MJF and Wardlow, and for me, that one's easy. I don't derail their heat for the Jurassic Express. When MJF finally loses, when Wardlow loses, I think it needs to be somebody with direction and steam going forward, and I just don't see that from the Jurassic Express right now at this moment. And I would maybe see him somehow maybe incapacitate Luchasaurus, and I would have him beat down Marco. Wardlow just beating the shit out of little Marco's the heat for me there. He's already beat up Luchasaurus. I've seen that. Him just destroying that little Marco and then gloating about it. That's the thing. That's the heat about when you beat a little guy. When you gloat like you just beat King Kong Bundy.
Marco Rubio
actually beat Marco Stunt. That's your heat.
But here's the thing: Jurassic Express could win by disqualification too. I could see that happening as well, where Wardlow and MJF just lose their shit and just beat everybody up.
Yeah, maybe. I'm still taking MJF winning.
We'll give you that.
Fine.
Let's go to the next matchup in the interest of time here, gentlemen. Shane, you get the first pick here, the first booking here, rather. It is the championship on the women's side. It's Hikaru Shida versus Penelope Ford. Penelope's going to have Kip Sabian in her corner.
Shida, you keep the champion running. She's doing great. She's got a little steam. She's fired up, as they say. She'll probably even will kick Kip Sabian in his head on the way to the victory.
David Hero.
I have to agree. You have to go with Shida. You have to go with Shida right now because you don't want to play hot potato with the titles in AEW. They need to establish their stars. And by just having them drop for having her drop the belt to Penelope Ford, it doesn't do anything for her at all.
So with that, we've got two more matchups to talk about. It's interesting to point out that there are 3 championship matchups on the July 1st edition and only one, that being the World Championship on July 8th. However, gentlemen, as was announced by AEW and Tony Khan yesterday, Jon Moxley is quarantined and has been exposed to someone who was exposed to, well, let's just stop talking about it. Renee Young has admitted, his wife, that she tested positive for.
Now, how do they know they've been exposed to each other? Just because they're married.
Birds and the bees or something like that. Flowers and trees. So Moxley, we'll see how they handle it. That's for next week's discussion. But 3 championship matchups on night 1, the first of which, and you, Dave, get the first pick, is for the TNT Championship. As Cody, you seem not to like the way this match came to be, but Cody will be defending against the number 1 contender, Jake Hager.
Oof.
Cody's going to have Arn Anderson in his corner.
Yeah, I know, but here's the difference. Jake's gonna have his wife, and I think she's a little more scrappy right now than Arn is at his age. You know, but this is gonna be a really good match because Jake Hager's a legit badass. He's a legit fighter, and Cody has a ton of steam behind him. I'm gonna go with Jake Hager. I just think that he needs to grab that title and do something and have Cody or whatever babyface chase him for a little bit. Otherwise, if Cody beats Jake Hager, where does Jake Hager go after this? Because he's not winning any other matches going right now. So I'm going to go with Jake Hager.
You're saying Cody is a short-time TNT champion, only from their last pay-per-view to this one, and Jake Hager walks out the champion?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's just because of the time that we're in right now with the COVID-19. It's like, well, hey, let Cody get the belt back down the road. Having him chase it, I think, means that much more. And again, AEW needs to establish more of their stars. They need to build more main event stars. Putting the belt on Jake Hager elevates him to main event. Let's not forget he's a former, world champion in WWE. So I could see him beating Cody Rhodes.
All right. Well, that's a big deal. Shane, how would you book this matchup?
I can see Jake Hager beating Cody Rhodes. I just don't see him doing it right now. I think Cody is going to get a good run with this TNT title. I mean, the TNT title isn't even finished yet.
That's true.
So I think it's too early. It's too early to take him off of it. I love what Cody's doing on TV. I think the story for Cody Rhodes is that eventually all of these defenses, these TNT Championship defenses, wear him down. He's not worn down yet. He's still running. He's still rolling. I don't think it hurt. I don't know if it's going to be a decisive victory over Jake Hager. It could be something nice and quick that leaves an opening for a future match. We could have some repercussions after this match. While I do believe that Jake Hager's wife is a little bit more nimble and mobile than Arn Anderson is, I think Brandy could come into play here for a little, maybe negate her somewhat. And you could see the inner circle get involved here. That's always a possibility, but I think I book Cody Rhodes in this going over.
All right, Cody is the winner according to Shane. Dave would book Jake Hager to win and become the new TNT champion. The final match we're going to talk about today is for the AEW World Tag Team Championship, and it's going to be Kenny Omega and Adam Page defending against the best friends, that being Chuck Taylor and Trent. And Shane, you get first picks in this match.
I'm going with the best friends in this one.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's time. I think we need to get Kenny Omega. I want to see him and Adam Page in singles pushes. I love the dynamic they have with each other on BTE. That can still continue. But especially with the way the tag team scene in AEW is going, with all of these tag teams, the promo that on Dynamite that the best friends just did this week, to me, they're just an interesting tag team. I'm more interested in them as a tag team, and I wouldn't be opposed to seeing them do something really dirty, really heelish, and becoming complete heels in this. And winning it, and they might not, but I still believe that I would like to see them get the tag team championships out of this. The best friends for the win. You
say Healy. Does Orange Cassidy get involved at all?
No, I think Orange Cassidy's hands are full. His pockets are full with his hands.
He's off till next week, though. His match with Jericho isn't until the following week on Fyter Fest.
That is true, but I think if I'm Orange Cassidy and I've been busted open a couple weeks in a row, if you got any sense whatsoever, your focus should be on the biggest star in the business right now, Chris Jericho. And I get there's a week notice, but maybe they could do some kind of promo with the best friends, even tell Orange Cassidy that, hey, man, look, you need to stay focused on Jericho. We got this. Let us do this ourselves. You can always do a promo like that to explain Orange Cassidy not being out there. Then the best friends do the damage and become the tag. Just throwing that out there.
All right. Well, new champions and best friends, according to Shane. Dave Hero, what would you do in this match?
they've been teasing Omega and Page breaking up for quite a while now. I just don't see it happening yet. I still think that there's some big money in an Omega Page versus the FTR down the road. I think that's eventually going to be the tag match where Omega and Page drop it. Best friends, they're growing on me slowly. I just don't see them holding the AEW gold with so many other tag teams there right now. At best, they would be a transitional tag team champion. I don't see them holding the title that long, because when you have the Bucks, you have LAX, you have the Lucha Brothers, you have FTR. I just don't see it. So I'm going to go with Omega and Page retaining and standing tall at Fyter Fest.
All right. A bit of a disagreement to end things. And actually, it's not about agreeing or disagreeing. It's your two separate opinions and how you would book these matches going forward. Which are you most looking forward to now that we've gone through week 1 for Great American Bash, week 1 for Fyter Fest? Next week, things are different on a live scale from both shows. The ratings battle is truly on, because now they're trying to go toe-to-toe with special shows. This is not your typical weekly show. WWE probably has more to prove on the end of Great American Bash than AEW has to prove with Fyter Fest. But gentlemen, you two, your thoughts. Which show are you looking most forward to tune into live next Wednesday, starting with you, Dave?
AEW. I mean, Fyter Fest night 1 is stacked. I mean, right now you got four or five matches we just talked about. We only talked about 3 matches for the Great American Bash. And for me, Great American Bash, I just want to see what Robert Stone does. But when you have Jake Hager and Cody Rhodes, and then you have the tag titles, the women's titles, there's just so much more going on. There's a lot more star power on Fyter Fest.
Shane?
1,000% agree.
It's going to be an uphill battle for the Great American Bash. What level of embarrassment will there be for WWE for hot-shotting the Great American Bash back to counter Fyter Fest? And if next week they still come out well behind AEW in the also important ratings that actually will matter next week, what do you think happens, Shane?
I don't think there's going to be that big of an embarrassment. They've had a week or 2 weeks of promotion. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Like I said, I think they just threw it out there because of the what Dave said earlier. You got Fyter Fest instead of just AEW. So now they got Great American Bash instead of just NXT. They just threw it out to counterbalance it a little bit. I don't think it's going to be a big deal. If I were them, I would expect AEW to continue their winning trend and not worry. You can't worry about that too much. They haven't stacked the Great American Bash card with any out of the ordinary star power. And a couple of those matches do seem rather quickly booked, as opposed to what we've been talking about with AEW, where every match on this card has a history, has a story, has a purpose, has a seeming destination. AEW is just being a little bit more cleverly booked right now.
And let's say this, and I'll it seems as if actually WWE is not going to be looking at embarrassment. They're saving themselves from embarrassment by countering. But more to the point of what you just said, Shane, AEW's got a unique challenge because they've lost some talents. You look at what Matt Hardy's doing, that was supposed to be somewhere different. You look at what's going to have to happen with Moxley for the championship. Even with that, they still presented a meaningful card for their Fyter Fest event. Dave Hero, your thoughts on whether or not this is going to put WWE NXT in a worse position than normal week to week?
Not at all, because they're not winning every week anyhow. So big deal if they lose 50,000 viewers to AEW. It doesn't make a difference. It really doesn't. Because at the end of the day, it's going to come down to, ratings are important, but at the end of the day, it's going to come down to when they finally get back into the buildings, how are the ticket sales? How is the merchandising going forward that way? Right now, we're just trying to entertain people at home. I'll be very curious to see how things play out later on down the road when real money is going to be spent.
Fair enough. And speaking of spending real money, it doesn't take a lot of that to look as good as you guys do in your respective shirts you're wearing today. Dave, tell us how we can get some
Yes, tell us, Dave. Tell us about this shirt.
If you want to be like just Shane Helms and me on a week that I lose, just Just go to collarandelbowbrand.com. Use promo code PWR360. Save some money at collarandelbowbrand.com. And you too can be part of the Planet of the Capes.
So what he's trying to say is if you want to look like a loser, wear a Shane Helms shirt. I see what you did there. That was clever. Don't think that slipped by me. So, yeah. Well done. You can see me sporting the Living the Dream. Shout out to the great Dusty Rhodes shirt, which is how I always associate the shirt.
Yeah, I think we just had a birthday. Dusty would have just had a birthday last week, right?
Yep. Yeah. And I don't know if you guys saw it on Twitter yesterday. I was throwing out a conversation of Pro Wrestling Tees about a Midnight Rider shirt. And
yes,
right away, there was a fantastic. Did you see the artworks? Right away, an artist sent me a picture of Dusty as the Midnight Rider. And then it turned into I would like to see a Barry Windham Yellow Dog t-shirt, a JYD Stagger Lee. And so there might be a line of shirts from Pro Wrestling Tees.
How about the Tommy Rich about the Mr. R shirt?
You got to have the Mask Mr. R. It's one of my favorite shirts. But who gets the money, him or the Armstrong family?
Maybe they split it.
Got to split it.
I will say this.
Damien has no idea what we're talking about right now.
No,
I absolutely do. I was just saying, what about Mr. America?
When Tommy Rich lost
I never figured out who Mr. America was.
When Tommy Rich lost to Ted DiBiase, I was like, oh my God, Tommy Rich has to retire. I can't believe this. And then the Masked Mr. R came out. I was like, oh, that was fantastic. And then when it was Brad Armstrong, one of my favorite all-time wrestlers, Brad Armstrong was one of the best dropkick, in all of wrestling, right up there with Jim Brunzell. When he took the mask off to reveal it was him and won the North American Championship, that was fantastic. Or the national championship.
See, here's the thing. Here's a Mandela effect, and you just touched on it. Do you guys know what the Mandela effect is?
No, I do not.
Okay, it's something that you remembered your whole life as being a certain way, and then later on you find out it was never true. The theory is there's a multiversal quantum universal effect that they believe happens, that something has changed, And so one of my Mandela effects is I always knew that was for the North American title, but turns out it was for the national title. Mm-hmm. And anytime, and I watched it back and go, I remember that being a North American title, but it wasn't. It was a national title. So that's a Google Mandela effect. You guys will go down a rabbit hole for that one.
That's exactly what I want to do right now. Yes. I want to find a rabbit hole.
Shane, Dave, thank you guys. Great insight, great conversation. This show's so good. You know what? We're going to air it. It's here live Thursday night on Fight TV. We're going to air it again on Saturday night as Be the Booker never stops, and we want you to play along with us. Submit. Tell us your rosters. Twitter, Shane at ShaneHelms.com, at David Hero, at Damian Nelson. Also comment on our show here in the Fight TV chat or on Facebook or YouTube as well. We want to see what you think and how you would book, or if you disagree with either way, the direction that these gentlemen have gone in, tell us why. We are interactive and we continue to encourage your feedback. So for the man they call David Hero and the Hurricane Shane Helms, this is Damian Nelson saying thank you so much for joining us here live on Fight TV. We'll see you again Saturday for the